everybody. This is Deborah Catt, and you are listening to the Better Sex Podcast. This is the place where you get tips and techniques to learn how to improve your sex life, which ultimately is going to improve your relationships. I truly believe that a sexy world is a better world. If you'd like to do your part in creating a better world, please like, subscribe, and comment wherever you get your podcast. Today, I have the great pleasure of introducing my friend and colleague, Leah Piper. Leah is the founder of More Love Mentor and Seminars. She is an advanced, certified tantric educator and has been a student of Tantra since 1997. She is the primary female facilitator for the Source School of Tantra Yoga and has been leading seminars with Charles Muir since 2004. Leah is a workshop leader, therapeutic coach, and mentor for those seeking deeper meaning in the world of sexual love. She's taught thousands of couples and individuals all over the world to elevate sex to an art form. I have had the great fortune of being on the Tantra path for a long time, along with Leah. Our journeys have overlapped along the way. I am so excited to have you here on the podcast with me today, Leah. I've read the official bio, but please, I'd love to know, how did you get here?
Well, that story started a long time ago. I stumbled my way into a really hot relationship with a kind of older man when I was just a little tantra pup. And he swept me off my feet with the first hug. And it was like he wrapped his arms around me, and I felt like he was such a big bear, and he scooped me in. And when he inhaled, I felt like he had inhaled me into him. It was like the most epic hug, the most epic embrace. It goes beyond a hug that I've had to date. And that was sort of what started the road to sort of this sexual, mystical phenomenon that can happen between bodies. And when we broke up, I didn't know that what we were doing in that relationship was anything called Tantra. But when we broke up, he had left all of his books and all of his art with me. And so I was going through some things with a total broken heart and stumbled across this book called Tantra, the Art of Conscious Loving by Charles and Caroline Muir. It was a blue book. And I remember looking at the back cover and seeing these couple from Hawaii. And I'm flipping through this book and I'm reading it and I become enthralled. And I couldn't believe that the things we were doing sexually in that relationship and in our conversations and we were with each other were things he picked up in a book. I was startled. I was pissed. I was happy. I was surprised. One level, it was like, why didn't you share this book with me beforehand? Oh my God, what I could have brought to the table would have been so much richer with this knowledge. And then at the same time, I realized there's a seed had been planted after reading that book. And it took me a while to watch that seed really grow and mature. But the seed basically came down to, it wasn't him. The power wasn't in him. He just pointed out where the power lives in me.
Ooh,
Yeah, right?
I
So
love that. I mean, I've got goosebumps. So
yeah,
yeah. So can you say that again?
because I think the reason why this is important is so many of us have a new experience sexually, and we give the credit to whoever partnered with us in that experience. It's because of them I had my first ejaculation. It's because of them I finally feel beautiful. It's because of them that this happened and that happened. That was the best lover of my life, and it was all because of them. And so we ache and we yearn and we think we go into scarcity around, will I ever have that again? And so what I said, as I repeat, is I realized that he wasn't the one who was doing it for me. It wasn't that he had all the power. He just pointed out in my body where the power lived in me. So as a result, we can take this new experience and we can bring it to anyone that we date, anyone that we choose to be sexual with or non-sexual with. Like, that depth of presence is inside of you. You being in the moment and being open is inside of you. And your body can teach other bodies how to do it.
I just want to pause for a second
Sure.
because when you were talking, like, You started by talking about the embrace. And as you were describing it, I could actually feel goosebumps in my own body because it's so true. It's like when we come together fully in that manner. And I love what you're saying about how it's pointing to the possibility. These peak experiences that we share with other people, it's as two people come together. And we are actually taught in the world, for the most part, to give our power up and to even the language we talk about, like giving an orgasm to somebody, or
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't allow for that truth of having our bodies as part of the equation.
Yeah, I think it also points to like sexual sovereignty because we are much better at the art of love and pleasure when we take responsibility for our own turn on, for our own pleasure, for our own awakening, for our own self realization when it comes to our sexual nature and the gifts that we're all given as a result of it. When we make it someone else's job, again, we're
Mhm.
giving away the autonomy, the sovereignty that is ours. And then when we are really responsible for our pleasure and how we want to show up in the bedroom, it relieves our lover from having to go through an ego trip, whether that is inadequacy or thinking that they're something like the big kahuna or whatever that means for all the different bodies that we have and the different egos that we have.
Yeah. And, before we started talking on recording, we were talking about choice. And we were talking mostly about the male body and
Hmm.
choice in ejaculation, choice in playing with one's own turn on and one's own eroticism. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about that from you.
Yeah. So in my private practice over these 2 decades of working with men, one of the things that I don't think people realize is how many men are really struggling with what doctors would call premature ejaculation. And they feel like they're not lasting long enough in bed. And they worry that because of that lack of stamina or that what seems like a lack of control around their ejaculation, they worry that they aren't pleasuring their partner. Or really, when I'm saying this, I'm really talking to all the penis owners out there, however you identify with that. So, for a penis owner to be able to harness their sexual energy and have more choice, because what is premature ejaculation? It just means premature for you. I
Right,
mean,
right.
there's so much range. And not only that, but there's sort of a shaming quality around some of that terminology, premature ejaculation. So, we like to call it ejaculatory choice or even ejaculatory control, where you're able to harness your sexual energy and realize some important things about it. Number one, it's life force energy. It takes so much energy to have an ejaculation because each ejaculation, each load carries 3 to 4 million sperm. That means that energy comes from all the organs, from all the glands to be able to create enough life force energy to create life itself. And that's why as men age, they have fewer voluntary erections and they have to repair longer. They have a longer refractory period between their last ejaculation and their next erection. So, what I'm trying to say here is when you start to harness the power of your life force energy that comes through the sperm and you're able to make wiser choices on how you spend that energy, then you become more the master lover. And what most men don't know is that they can separate orgasm from ejaculation. When you start to ride the waves of higher arousal and then cut out of the wave before you ejaculate, you'll start to feel different types of orgasms. They start to feel like these ecstatic waves, but you're
Mhm.
not going over the waterfall in such a way where you wipe out. And that matters as you get older. Now, backing up a little bit more towards ejaculatory control, because people who are struggling with ejaculating earlier than they want to, they're like, Leah, how am I ever going to get to that place where I can surf the rave? I'm wiping out right when I start. So
Mhm.
that's why we need to like slow down the process. Now, no matter what gender you identify as, you have an arousal scale. So
Mhm.
think of an arousal scale as 1 through 10. And in this case, I'm going to use the example of penis owners since we're talking about ejaculation.
Okay.
Most men will go from a 5, a 6, or a 7 on the arousal scale, and they jump to 10. Men with little or no control will go from like a 1.5 or 2 to 2.5 and jump to 10. And then there's men who go, "But Leah, what about me? I can barely ejaculate. Like I need so much friction. I'm not ejaculating hardly at all. And I'm really frustrated because I want to ejaculate." So guys who struggle ejaculating, they're hanging out at around a 5 or a 6, and they're not getting to 10 either. So what does that demonstrate? That everyone's missing 8 and 9. And 8 and 9 is where all the magic is. 8 and 9 is where the profundity of turn on is. 8 and 9 is when you start to step into those more mystical realms that Tantra is so well known for. So that means we need to start to slow it down so
Mm.
that you don't miss a sensation. So you don't miss a 2, a 3, or a 4. Because 10 might be great, but I think 9's even better. And not only that, but who are you when you are at a 1.5? What does that feel like? Because each number isn't just a number, each number has a scale of 1 through 10. So, what would it be like if you were paying such close attention, if you were so in the moment that you could take a pause at 3.3 and take it all in? And the fear, oftentimes for many men, is that if I stop, or penis owners, is that if I stop all the friction, I might go soft.
Right.
And then what would happen? It's like nothing bad happens just because you lose some of your erection. It comes back if you don't create a story around it. So this is when we start to tap into pause periods being moments of increasing intimacy and really paying attention to your body. So how that relates to ejaculatory control is to allow more space in your body to be in these slower moments. And if you're worried about a partner being frustrated, you just got to have a couple moves, a couple like, "Oh my God, you feel so beautiful. Just let me feel it for a minute. Pause with me. God, you're gorgeous. Look into my eyes."
Oh my God, that's so good.
Yeah, yeah. It's not really that hard.
Right. And then I'm kind of curious, like, so for the partner of somebody that doesn't feel, I mean, I use the term erectile expectation. Like they don't
Oh,
have
good.
because it really is this expectation. So what if you're the partner and all of your partners before have, the minute they see you, they're up and ready and they're hard. And
Right.
then you have a partner, and again, it's partly about the story. It's like, oh, if he's not hard, then I'm not attractive. If he's not hard, then he's not into me. What would you say to the partner?
Exactly that. Like, this is where sexual sovereignty comes in. Stop making it about you. And we don't know that. We just think erection means I'm attractive and desirable. So that comes back to like just sort of getting into the whole erection, non erection, which could have to do with what the doctor might label as erectile dysfunction. And the important thing for the lovers of penis owners to understand is that's your ego. Ask some questions, get curious, find out more what's going on. Don't just react in a story of what's wrong with me that you're not getting it up, or what's wrong with you or me that you're not staying hard. What's the problem? What's the problem? And going into your insecurities instead of just getting really curious and go, "Hey, how can I support you with this? And can you tell me more about what's happening in your body when this happens?
Right.
And how can we together in partnership increase the sensations of desire for you if it's a desire situation? What can we do to sort of explore maybe some new things that you haven't learned turn you on?" And I would sort of point to the erotic blueprints as one model that could help someone figure out. I've been trying to have like normal sex, quote unquote, that looks like this, that's like
Mhm.
has 2 scripts to it, when really there are millions of scripts out there that are untapped for you that may open the door to your most aroused state. And you can then walk through that door and have an awakening with your sexuality. Sometimes it's as simple as you haven't tapped into the thing that opens you. So,
Exactly. I know when I work with clients, one of the biggest things, like just letting them know that whatever is going on with them is normal, right?
mhm,
That their version of sex is, they need to figure out, like, because we're really, as you said, offered one model of sex. You know,
mhm,
people come together, they escalate, they climax, and then they have a nap. And there's so much more. And I love what you were saying about really slowing down and finding the turn on for you. And I also heard, and there's the piece of each of us being responsible for our own experience, but then there's what we create together.
Yeah. 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 And that's where like the term partnership really matters. It's like, will you partner with me in this? I could really use some support with this. Hey, what do you want to co-create together? What's hot to you? And oh, that's kind of nice, but I would be even more curious if you went over here. What if you touched me there? What if you licked there? What if I flipped over? Then you're creating a dance and you get to play music together. So one of the things that we teach is for you to have a practice, a solo practice where you get to really learn about your body. You play with certain types of self-pleasuring. You do your own sexual healing. You learn how to awaken and open your own body. And the way that I would like, it's kind of like a musician who practices playing music so they're ready for the concert. So this is the same concept. You practice your solo practice so you become ready to play music with another body or bodies. And which kind of brings me back to, your question previously about, what would you say to the partner who may be frustrated and not understanding why their partner, let's say, isn't choosing to ejaculate? Because as penis owners start to understand that there is more wisdom than our culture has taught them about their sexuality and what they can do with it. And one of those areas that Tantra really is known for is helping men become multi-orgasmic without tiring ejaculations. So it's really confusing for partners who haven't been introduced to the concept. And they don't understand, like their partner may have an erection, but if they're not ejaculating every time they have sex, it gets really confusing. Well, why aren't you ejaculating? Like, what's wrong with me that you're not ejaculating? And they don't know that by not ejaculating, their partner is recirculating their energy. And instead of squirting it all out, which would cause a generation potentially, if they learned how to play with that energy and not squander it, then it creates regeneration in their body. And it's how I help a lot of mid-aged men start to reverse the aging process because of those lack of volunteer erections, because their refractory period is too long and they want to make love more often. When you start to separate your ejaculation from your orgasm without losing pleasure, then you get such a bigger return on your investment. I hope that's clear.
Oh
I know
my
it's a lot packed into a little.
Ah, that's so, so good. And I feel like we're just opening the door. And I know I'm so grateful for your time. I know we're coming to the end of it today already, which seems amazing,
How did that happen?
right? But I do want to say, I know that you cover so much more of like, we just
We just
started.
tapped the surface, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah. And you cover so much more in not only your course, but you are launching a podcast.
Yes, by the time this episode airs, people can go to the Sex Reimagined Podcast with myself and Dr. Willow Brown, and you can binge, baby. We'll already have a bunch of episodes on there, and we've got two different ways that we do the podcast: an acupuncturist, a Chinese medicine doctor, and a Taoist sexuality teacher. And I am the Tantra teacher. So she brings the Tao, I bring Tantra. And we have episodes featuring different topics between her and I. And then we also have topics where we bring sexperts onto the show. And that is our Sexpert on Sexpert series. And we do 2 of those a month. So Miss Deborah Cat will be featured on the Sexpert on Sexpert series. And I can't wait for y'all to tune into it.
Oh, thank you so much. So, what is one thing that you want people to know in our conversation? Like, would you like people to walk away with?
Yeah. Well, number one is that if you are struggling with ejaculatory choice and you really want more ejaculatory control, you're not alone. I want to normalize this for you. And there are so many simple techniques and pressure points and breathing styles that can give you back that control. And you can feel confident as a lover. And so do not despair. Do not avoid intimacy. We have a program called Last 10 Times Longer, and it's a multi-series course where both your partner, yourself, can learn all about male sexual mastery. So if you go to the website sexreimagined.com, you can see more about that.
And all of this information is going to be in our show notes. Once again, Leah, thank you so incredibly much for taking time to talk today. And for those of you listening, thank you for listening to the Better Sex Podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Love, love, love.
Thank you.